cats, what's happening? Welcome to the man cave again. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Getting late afternoon, actually. I've been busy all day. You see the sun shining, but it's cold. It's 40 degrees inside, but it's colder outside. But a nice day regardless. You probably have, a lot of people have asked me, hey Itchy, how do you come up with 2 videos every week? Where do you come up with the ideas? That's a good question because it's not easy. In fact, sometimes it's a bit of a challenge considering the schedule that I've had. It is sometimes very busy. Going into next week, we have appointments either between me and Val every day of the week. So we're booked up, so don't ask me to do anything. I'll get a video in anyway, so. But today, a lot of you, well, not a lot, but some of you guys have asked me to talk about my bike a little bit, so I can do that today. I mean, I can bullshit about anything, really, but I think I can tell you some interesting facts about my bike. This is a 1999 FLSTF model, better known as the Harley Davidson Fat Boy. There's very little on this motorcycle that's original. Back in 2000, I believe, the year 2000, I wrecked it and wrangled it up pretty bad, so everything on it was replaced. Now I also get asked, what's the mileage on your bike? I don't know what the actual mileage is because the odometer was replaced back when I wrecked it. But if we look right now, it currently has 54,083 miles on it. So it had some miles on it prior to that because I was traveling across country with it. And I don't even remember how many miles it had on it at that time. But anyway, very little of the bike is original. I'll start at the front. You'll see, the paint job is what they call a Harlequin paint. And it's hard to tell indoors. When it gets in the sunlight, though, and you get some bright sunlight on it, it can really change a lot of colors. It kind of has a root beer flavor to it, but it also has like a plum color. It can show in the sunlight, especially in the evening with low sunlight, it gets glints of gold, and it's very pretty. I really like the paint job. But in inclement weather or when it's just a gray day, it just kind of looks like a drab plum color. It doesn't really bring out the color so much. Now the other thing people ask me about is you got solid wheels on here. How does that affect wind, when you get crosswinds? Does it blow you all over the road? Well, I'll tell you what, I've ridden this bike in all kinds of weather. In storms, in, even in some snow conditions, but I've never really had any issue to speak of with a problem with the solid wheels causing me problems with wind. And I haven't really heard anybody that owns a bike with solid wheels do a lot of complaining about it, because it might be a slight issue, if you can even call it an issue. But, when you're riding, it doesn't matter what you're on, and you get a good gust of wind, yeah, it's gonna knock you a little bit, because you're on a light motorcycle, and you're on 2 wheels, and it'll buffet you some. So I don't think the wheels make a lot of difference. I had a friend give me this light bar with the extra running lights and the turn signals, and then I put the little Harley Davidson shroud covers over the lights back then. The windshield is a clip-on. It comes on and off. There's a little wire clip right there. You just lift up on it, and it pops right off of this bracket and hinges right off of this bracket and the whole windshield comes right off. Just that easy, no tools needed. And this tool bag isn't really attached. It's kind of wedged down in between the handlebar and the windshield. So when I do take the windshield off, I flip this tool bag around and I strap it onto the handlebars. It does have a strap on it that allows you to do that. So the gas tank is not the original gas tank, and I wish I could remember how many gallons the original gas tank was, but this is a 5-gallon tank, so it was an upgrade. And you always can appreciate some extra fuel when you're out traveling across country. The seats are not original. Well, this part here, this little leather strip around the edge with the grommets and stuff and the braid around the edge is original, but the seat, the covers, the pillion passenger seat is not original. There's a lady that, probably about 15 miles from here in a little town of Creston that used to do a lot of leather. She would sew patches on my jackets, but she said she could recover the seats for me. So she took my old seats because they were split and cracked here just from weather and my big ass bouncing up and down on it. And she completely recovered them, reupholstered them, but she also put gel pads in both the pillion pad and the passenger seat, which made an enormous difference in comfort of my rear end. Originally, it was just the stock seat, and boy, your butt would be sore after all day riding on that thing, but the gel pad makes a huge difference in comfort. I put these Vance & Hines shotgun pipes on there. They do have baffles in the end. There's a little bolt on the back that you take off, and then you can pull the baffles out with a pair of needle nose. I had them out once, but it makes a lot of racket, especially when you let off the throttle. It's almost like a Jake brake when you let off the throttle. Wah, 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 wah. And it's really loud. But I was told that you could burn up your valves if you don't have that back pressure, so I've left the baffles in there, and it still has a beautiful throaty sound. I love the sound of this bike. Now, as far as the motor goes, it's the Evolution V-Twin. It's a good running motor. This is the 80 cubic inch version. Later, they were doing 90 cubic inches, but this is the smaller motor. The only problem I ever had with it was some of the gaskets had blown out on the top, at least twice, that I had to replace the top gaskets. But everything else seems to be okay. I haven't had any other problems with it. What else did I do? I put these pads on. They're not the original, these foot pads, and also what they call sweepers, this fringe on there. I used to ride with an old fella that had sweepers on his bike, and I always thought that was pretty neat, so I copied off of him, and I went and got some for my own pads. At the same time, I was at the Easy Riders, not the rodeo in Chillicothe or whatever, but it was the Easy Riders bike show, and they have a lot of vendors there. So I bought this flap, this leather flap, and it's very stiff, you know, it's a very stiff flap, but it has snake skin in there, and it has the fringe on it that matched the sweepers up on my foot pads. So I kind of like that. These are the nicest saddlebags I've ever had. When I bought the bags, it was just two separate bags. I had to make this center strap out of some leather that I had and just cut it to fit, and then I had it. I had that lady stitch it. She sewed it onto the saddlebag for me. and then I just put some rivets in there so it wouldn't come loose, because you can really put a lot of weight in those saddlebags and it tugs, so that kind of holds them up where they're supposed to be. There's no sag in these things or anything. Yeah, the original saddlebags that I had on this bike, now when I bought the bike it didn't have any saddlebags, okay. It was black. It had the typical Fat Boy logo on the side of the gas tank. It did not have the chrome on the front fender tip. It was just pretty plain. There's a photo of me and my father on the bike when it was relatively new. Anyway, the saddlebags, there was no saddlebags on it. So I worked with a fella, and his brother had an old knuckle head with the jockey shifter, and it was pretty much of a classic bike. And he was a wild card, very, very wild guy. Getting in a lot of trouble. Not the guy I worked with, but his brother, okay. He was a heavy, heavy drinker. I mean, and then when he drank, he got angry, and he was a brawler. He always liked to fight and cause problems. Well, he was on the highway one day, and he was totally inebriated in the wee hours of the morning. He ran his motorcycle into one of those big flashing arrows where they were doing road construction, and that was the end of the road for him, unfortunately. But his brother, who I worked with, because I knew his brother and everything and had ridden with him, he gave me the saddlebags off of the knuckle. They were mismatched, though. They were genuine, real full leather saddlebags. They were old. One was real small, and the other one was fairly large, about this size here. But the other one was probably half of that size. It was just a real shorty little saddlebag, and I had them strapped over the back. And the problem was I just didn't have enough room in them, and they were, because they were mismatched, I had a big saddlebag on this side and a little one on this side, so it was kind of odd, but I didn't care, you know, and nobody else ever complained about it either. Well, I eventually thought, well, I'm going to replace these with some nice saddlebags. I want the bike to look nice. So I bought saddlebags that were specifically for this model of Fat Boy. And you may have seen them if you have ever, but they kind of had this slant back on them. They kind of slanted, so they were more like aerodynamic looking or something, you know. And they were a little smaller than these bags that are on there right now. They were a little smaller. But they got wet. And I tell you, they were made out of like a pressed cardboard. They got wet and they just disintegrated. I'm going down the road one day. I was going down the highway, and the guy's waving at me, and he's pointing to my saddlebag, you know, and I look back and I see a stream of smoke. Well, I wasn't too far away from the truck stop. So I pulled into the truck stop and I got off my bike, and my saddlebag got so like soggy that it kind of sagged down right onto the exhaust pipe, and it caught fire. The pipes were that hot from me running the highway that it caught the material on fire. Well, I opened my saddlebag and I'm pulling stuff out of there, and some of my rain gear was melted, and I had, what did I have, like one of those neck gaiter things that was like smoldering hot coals, and I flung that out and was trying to stomp the fire out. And the saddlebag was actually smoldering like a piece of wood. You know, there was hot coals in the bottom of it. So I'm trying to knock it out. I burned my hand and everything. But I finally got the thing. I didn't want to lose the bike, you know. I didn't want it to burn up. And I finally got the fire put out. But that was the end of those saddlebags. I ordered these ones. I don't know if they're leather, but they're almost like they're like a hard, real hard, and they don't ever lose their shape. They're completely waterproof, and I've had them for quite a few years, and I'm totally satisfied with them. I mean, there's no sag in the bottom of them whatsoever, and they're both matched size, and they hold a lot of gear. So yeah, pretty happy with that. The only other thing I did was the rear tire. The original rear tire was a little bit of a more narrow tread, so I replaced it with a fatter tire. Actually, the fattest tire that would actually fit in between the frame on this bike. So I don't know, it just looked, you could tell by looking at it that it was like a skinny tire, the stock original tire, and I just wanted more of a beefier look, you know, so I got the wider tire on the back. But actually, from the rear, you can't even see the tire anyways. You're only looking at the side of it there, maybe. The bullet hole in the rear fender is just a magnet. It pops right off of there, and you can move it wherever you want. So it's not a real bullet hole. Nobody ever shot at me. Yeah. That's about all I can tell you. I did have these back foot pegs are different than the stock. The hand grips are different than the stock. The handlebars are not stock. They're different. Just about everything on the bike, aside from the motor and the frame, was replaced when it got wrecked. So there you go, 1999 Fat Boy, and still runs like a top. And I wish I could go out and ride today, but it's just a little too chilly out there for riding. But I can take the mini hog out down and get the mail. It'll be a little brisk, but I think I can handle it just for that short ride down the driveway. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your prayers for my wife as she deals with her major issues with this small cell cancer. Give the video a thumbs up. Until next time, cats, ride hard and die free.